Hey there.
How are you, Jerry? You good? Good morning, good morning.
Good morning, Jake. How you doing, sir?
Good. Come on in. How's everybody? Morning, Miss Faye. Well, let's wrap up Genesis. I said, let's wrap up Genesis. Brad is sick, and I am his fill-in. And, of course, I'll be in here starting next Sunday going through Exodus. Let me scooch up a little bit. Where did y'all leave off? Do anybody recall? 47, 48, 49, and 50? 47. Put these phones on silent. Do not disturb, because it will disturb. The biggest lesson that I draw out of the last 3 chapters of this book is that God is not as concerned with my physical welfare as I am. The last 3 chapters of this book are all about how God ties up, puts a bow on all of the pain of Joseph. If you look toward the end of Genesis 50, remember a couple weeks ago we covered Joseph and Asenath, his wife, and he said that he's going to name his first son, where is it? Well, maybe it ain't 50. Yeah, that's when he dies. Anyway, one of his sons, he names, God has caused me to forget all the iniquity of my father. And that there's blessings in new beginnings. There's blessings in new chapters. There's blessings when burdens become blessings. There's no doubt that if you recall in Genesis, I believe it was 19, when the Lord spoke to Abraham and he told him, he said that your people are going to be kept in captivity until the iniquity of the surrounding nations is complete. Why does the Lord put up with iniquity of nations? He does. He does. Obviously, one of the reasons that he has yet to return is because he knows that there are people who are yet left to repent. There are those who will become Christians who are not yet Christians, and that's one of the reasons that he has not yet come back. Scripture teaches us that. Also, in regards to those who would be martyrs for the faith, there is something to that. What all, I don't know, and this class isn't for that necessarily this morning, but he is staying his wrathful hand on this world because there are some who will die for the faith who have not died for the faith, and they're counted in Revelation as such. What I find in the last 3 chapters of this book is that God causes the famine. God uses the famine. God brings about the famine. He doesn't. Let me put it this way. If you look at the situation with Joseph and his brothers, what does he say there toward the end when he tells them and he reveals to them who he is? How did they respond? Do you recall? Yeah. Yeah, they were. And what does Joseph say? What you meant for evil, God meant for good. That's what he says. That's the wording. God meant for this to be something good. What you used and what you did and what you construed was evil. God meant it for good. Let's start in chapter 47. So Joseph went in and told Pharaoh, "My father and my brothers, with their flocks and herds, and all that they possess have come from the land of Canaan. They are now in the land of Goshen." And from among his brothers he took 5 men and presented them to Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to his brothers, "What is your occupation?" And they said to Pharaoh, "Your servants are shepherds, as our fathers were." And they said to Pharaoh, "You have come to sojourn in the land, for there is no pasture for your servants' flocks, for the famine is severe in the land of Canaan. And now please let your servants dwell in the land of Goshen." Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Your father and your brothers have come to you. The land of Egypt is before you. Settle your father and your brothers in the best of the land. Let them settle in the land of Goshen. And if you know any able men among them, put them in charge of my livestock." Pause. What are these brothers guilty of?
They're guilty of, number one,
Lying,
deceiving,
conceiving plots against their brother. Have they done iniquity? Yes. But yet what does God say to do to them and to their family? Put them where?
put them in the best land.
In the best of the land. Aren't you thankful that He still does that with us as individuals? Even when things are bad for us, it's still good it's still in comparison to things around the world, isn't it? There are blessings in this country. I was watching something the other day, Daddy and I were, about natural disasters all around the world. And these natural disasters, these landslides, these floods, all these sorts of things, you know what the main cause of those problems are? Man. Why? What is there not in other countries that there is here? Infrastructure. You think about the erosion control and the things that America funds to put into place to keep our neighborhoods safe and our locations safe from things like that. Those countries don't help those people. Been in the Philippines, and it looks like, it just looks like war zone. And their country doesn't do anything for them. It's funny when people complain about America. I'm like, you should just go around the world. Just take a look. Are there things worthy of complaints? Sure. But it pales in comparison to the way things are around this world, where people are left absolutely to themselves. And life is a vapor. And that's a reality. But here, even though they've sinned, He puts them in the best of the land. He says, "Let them settle in the land of Goshen. And if you know any able men among them, put them in charge of my livestock." Then Joseph brought in Jacob, his father, and stood him before Pharaoh. Jacob blessed Pharaoh, and Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Jacob, how many are the days of the years of your life?" And Jacob said to Pharaoh, "The days of the years of my sojourning are 130 years. Few and evil have been the days of the years of my life. And they have not attained to the days of the years of the life of my fathers in the days of their sojourning." And Jacob blessed Pharaoh and went out from the presence of Pharaoh. Then Jacob settled his father and his brothers and gave them possession in the land of Egypt, in the best of the land, in the land of Ramesses, as Pharaoh had commanded. And Joseph provided his father, his brothers, and all his father's household with food according to the number of their dependents. Now there was no food in all the land. Why? The famine. Go back to the beginning of Joseph. Who gave Joseph those dreams? God did. Now, what Joseph did was he took them in a show about way and was like, one day, all of you are going to bow to me. Now, what number was he in the brothers? He was at the bottom of the totem pole. Okay? Not only is that just contradictory to the culture, but also contradictory to the blessing that the Lord would give to the firstborn. And so he was totally against the grain. But now it's coming to fruition. God gives Joseph these dreams. God keeps Joseph in 22 years of silence where He doesn't speak to him. All Joseph is faithful, and it continues to go down for him. It'll go up and then it go back down. For every equal high, there was an equal low in his life. It just went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And Joseph didn't know anything yet. But But here it says that he took him, stood him before him, blesses him. It says there was no food in all the land, for the famine was very severe. God used a famine. God starved people to push to push Joseph's father and brothers where? To where Joseph was. Who gave Joseph the dream or the interpretation of the dream? God did. Whose plan has this been the whole time? God's. We can't just say, oh, this is happenstance. Oh, this is just by chance. Oh, this is just by mistake. No. God has woven and knew all along what was going to happen and used these things because of the iniquity of people to sew a string of pearls together. At the end of the pearls, here's a beautiful necklace. Can I often see providence as it's happening? Sometimes. More often than not. I don't see it when I'm going through it. I turn around and look, and I think he was there then, and then, and then, and look how this is, and look how this is. And whether God did something, God purposed for something to happen, or God allowed something to happen throughout all of my life, I don't know all those answers as to how, and did he push this button or did he push this button, or did he just let somebody else push this button? But the fact remains, God is sovereign over all and says, you know what? The end result is going to be better for Jake. And he's going to be a better man because of everything that he's went through. A man does not know Christ until he knows suffering. A man does not fully know Christ until he knows suffering. Jesus does not look good if my life looks good. Heaven does not look like heaven if my life is heaven. Blessings do not look like blessings unless my life is burdened. We're better for the pain. We're better for the famine. God brings about all kinds of things in His providence, in His sovereignty. And sometimes folks will say, wait a minute, why would God starve people? Why would God starve people? That don't sound like the kind of God that I find in my nursery books, in our children's Bible class. Well, we need to teach our children better. This fake God of prosperity, that's vanity. God's not about that. These last 3 chapters of this book tell us exactly that. Sir?
You brought up Abraham. We know that everything that God had told Abraham, God's word is bond.
Yep.
He told Abraham, your descendants will be at the sand of the seashore.
And Abraham never saw any of that. Yep. So, the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan languished by reason of the famine. Joseph gathered up all the money that was found in the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan in exchange for the grain that they bought. And Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's house. And when the money was all spent in the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan, this is verse 15, all the Egyptians came to Joseph and said, give us food. Why should we die before your eyes? For our money is gone. And Joseph answered, give your livestock, and I will give you food in exchange for your livestock if your money is gone. So they brought their livestock to Joseph, and Joseph gave them food in exchange for the horses, the flocks, the herds, and the donkeys. He supplied them with food in exchange for all their livestock that year. And when that year was ended, they came to him in the following year and said to him, we will not hide from my Lord that our money is all spent. The herds of our livestock are my Lord's. There is nothing left inside of my Lord but our bodies and our land. Why should we die before your eyes, both we and our land, by us and our land for food? And we, with our land, will be servants to Pharaoh, and give us seed that we may live and not die, and the land may not be desolate. So Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh. At one time, this man was slung in a hole, and he didn't have nothing. And now what does he have? All the land of Egypt. It says he did all of this for Pharaoh, for all the Egyptians sold their field because the famine was severe on them. The land became Pharaoh's. As for the people, he made servants of them, and from one end of Egypt to the other. Only the land of the priest he did not buy, for the priest had fixed allowance from Pharaoh and lived on the allowance that Pharaoh gave them. Therefore they did not sell their land. Then Joseph said to the people, behold, I have this day bought you and your land for Pharaoh. Now here is seed for you, and you shall sow the land. And the harvest you shall give a fifth to Pharaoh, and 4/5 shall be your own, as seed for the field, and as for food for yourselves and your households, and as food for your little ones. And they said, You have saved our lives. May it please my Lord. We will be servants to Pharaoh. So Joseph made it a statute concerning the land of Egypt, and it stands to this day, when Moses was writing this, it stands to this day that Pharaoh should have the fifth. The land of the priest alone did not become Pharaoh's. Thus Israel settled in the land of Egypt, in the land of Goshen, and they gained possessions in it, and were fruitful and multiplied greatly. And Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years. So the days of Jacob, the years of his life, were 147 years. Question: Who all did Joseph buy? Verse 15, when the money was all spent, all the Egyptians came to Joseph and said, Give us all these things. Whose land did he not buy? Priests. Okay, keep that in mind. Thus, verse 29, and when the time drew near that Israel must die, he called his son Joseph and said to him, If now I have found favor in your sight, put your hand under my thigh, and promise to deal kindly and truly with me. Do not bury me in Egypt, but let me lie with my fathers. Carry me out of Egypt and bury me in their burying place. He answered, I will do as you have said. And he said, Swear to me. And he swore to him. Then Israel bowed himself upon the head of his bed. After this Joseph was told, Behold, your father is ill. So he took with him his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. And it was told Jacob, Your son Joseph has come to you. Then Israel summoned his strength and sat up in bed. Jacob said to Joseph, God Almighty appeared to me at Luz in the land of Canaan, and blessed me, and said to me, Behold, I will make you fruitful and multiply you. I will make of you a company of peoples, and will give this land to your offspring after you for an everlasting possession. And now your two sons, who were born to you in the land of Egypt, before I came to you in Egypt, are mine. Ephraim and Manasseh shall be mine, as Reuben and Simeon are. And the children that you fathered after them shall be yours. They shall be called by the name of their brothers in their inheritance. For as for me, when I came from Padan, to my sorrow, Rachel died in the land of Canaan. Poor old Rachel. She died in the land of Canaan on the way, when there was still some distance to go to Ephrath. And I buried her there on the way to Ephrath, that is, Bethlehem. When Israel saw Joseph's son, who's Israel, by the way? Jacob. He said, Who are these? Joseph said to his father, These are my sons, whom God has given me here. And he said, Bring them to me, please, that I may bless them. Now the eyes of Israel were dim with age, that he could not see. So Joseph brought them near him, and he kissed them and embraced them. And Israel said to Joseph, I never expected to see your face. And behold, God has let me see your offspring also. Imagine the joy that was in that daddy's heart. Could he physically see? No, but he saw them. He knew them. What a blessing. Then Joseph removed them from his knees, and he bowed himself with his face to the earth. And Joseph took them both, Ephraim in his right hand toward Israel's left hand, and Manasseh in his left hand toward Israel's right hand, and brought them near him. And Israel stretched out his right hand and laid it on the head of Ephraim, who was the younger, and his left hand on the head of Manasseh, crossing his hands, for Manasseh was the firstborn. And he blessed Joseph and said, The God before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, the God who has been my shepherd all my life long to this day, the angel who has redeemed me from all evil, bless the boys, and in them let my name be carried on, and the name of my fathers, Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth. When Joseph saw that his father laid his right hand on the head of Ephraim, it displeased him. And he took his father's hand to move it from Ephraim. Bless that poor old man's heart. To remove it from Ephraim's head to Manasseh's head. And Joseph said to his father, Not this way, my father, since this one is the firstborn. Put your right hand on his head. But his father refused and said, I know, my son, I know. He also shall become a people, and he also shall be great. Nevertheless, his younger brothers shall be greater than he, and his offspring shall be a multitude of nations. So he blessed them that day, saying, By you Israel pronounced blessings, saying, God make you as Ephraim and as Manasseh. Then he put Ephraim before Manasseh. Then Israel said to Joseph, Behold, I am about to die, but God will be with you and will bring you again to the land of your fathers. Moreover, I have given to you rather than to your brothers one mountain slope that I took from the hand of the Amorites with my sword and with my bow. Then Jacob called his son and said, Gather yourselves together, that I may tell you what shall happen to you in days to come. Assemble and listen, O sons of Jacob. Listen to Israel your father. Reuben, you are my firstborn, my might, and the firstfruits of my strength. Preeminent in dignity and preeminent in power, unstable as water, you shall not have preeminence. Because you went up to your father's bed, then you defiled it. He went up to my couch. That's a slap in the face. Simeon and Levi are brothers. I wonder if they were twins. No. He says, Weapons of violence are their swords. Let my soul come not into their counsel. O my glory, be not joined to their company, for in their anger they killed men, and in their willfulness they hamstrung oxen. Cursed be their anger, for it is fierce, and their wrath, for it is cruel. I will divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. Think about this. This is the last time they're about to hear their daddy, and he gives them cursings. Judah, your brother, shall praise you. Now, who do we know comes from Judah? Okay? Judah, your brothers shall praise you. Your hand shall be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's son shall bow down before you. Judah is a lion's cub. From the prey, my son, you have gotten up. He stooped down. He crouched as a lion. And as a lioness, who dares rouse him? The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until tribute comes to him. And to him shall be the obedience of the peoples. Binding his foal to the vine, and his donkey's colt to the choice vine, he has washed his garments in wine, and his vesture in the blood of grapes. His eyes are darker than wine, and his teeth whiter than milk. So where does the scepter never leave? Judah. Was that important to Jews throughout the generations? Absolutely. What's interesting is he says that your brothers shall praise you. When the Lord came, when Jesus came on this earth, who did he first go to? The Jews. But how else were they described? Israelites. What else? The lost tribe of Israel. The lost Israelites. To restore them. Verse 13, Zebulun shall dwell at the shore of the sea, and he shall become a haven for ships, and his border shall be at Sidon. Issachar is a strong donkey, crouching between the sheepfolds. He saw that a resting place was good, and that the land was pleasant, so he bowed his shoulder to bear, and became a servant at forced labor. Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan shall be a serpent in the way, a viper by the path that bites the horse's heels, so that his rider falls backward. I wait for your salvation, O Lord. Riders shall raid Gad, but he shall raid at their heels. Asher's food shall be rich. He shall yield royal delicacies. Naphtali is a doe let loose that bears beautiful fawns. One translation instead of beautiful fawns is beautiful words, or that bears fawns of the fold. Verse 22, Joseph is a fruitful bow by a spring. His branches run over the wall. The archers bitterly attacked him, shot at him, and harassed him severely, yet his bow remained what? Unmoved. His arms were made agile by the hands of the mighty one of Jacob. Pause. You've seen in military, in footage of military and basic training, where they're trying to replicate a war-type scenario for soldiers. And they're laying there, and they've got their crosshairs down the range, and they're trying to shoot the target. And their instructors or their drill sergeants will try to replicate or try to knock them off of their focus. Why are they trying to do that? Ma'am? Conditioning. What are they conditioning them for? War. Is the bad guy going to let them shoot them? Is everything going to be nice and quiet, and slow and steady? Hold your breath. Don't pull the trigger. Squeeze the trigger, right? Okay, that's not how war goes. If you've ever been in war or ever been in any kind of gunfire, nobody asks permission, and nobody gets to design the scenario. You get thrown into it, and whatever it is whatever it is. So what these instructors are trying to do in mimicking violence and array and screams, and you think, why in the world are they screaming at them poor old boys? Because violence has become their game. It's become their lot. And if they can remain calm under pressure, they can get the job done. Here, Joseph, archers bitterly attacked him, shot at him, harassed him severely, verse 23. Verse 24, yet his bow remained unmoved. His arms were made agile by the hands of the mighty one of Jacob. From there is the shepherd, the stone of Israel. By the God of your father who will help you, by the Almighty who will bless you with blessings of heaven above, blessings of the deep that crouches beneath, blessings of the breast and of the womb, the blessings of your father, and are mighty beyond the blessings of my parents. Up to the bounties of the everlasting hills, may they be on the head of Joseph and on the brow of him who was set apart from his brothers. Benjamin is a ravenous wolf, in the morning devouring the prey, and at evening dividing the spoil. 22 through 26 is the reason that Joseph was able to be still when his whole world was not still. Who kept him that whole time? God did. What did Joseph know? Who did Joseph know? God. Joseph was accused. Temptations were laying at his feet, probably not just once with Potiphar's wife. Imagine being in jail. What kind of folks generally are in those kind of jails? Pretty bad folk. Okay, these ain't saints. They ain't in there reading the Bible to one another. Okay? Yet his bow, what does a bow imply? It says his bow remained unmoved. Warrior, but what else? What is the purpose of a bow? Focus. Has anyone ever bow hunted before? Uncle Charlie? Daddy? I have. Bow hunting is fun, and you got to get close to the game. But nothing beats a good rifle. You know what I mean? I can sit comfortably 150 yards off and then I'll get up when he's done doing what he's doing. The bow here implies that he's doing what? What do you have to do with the bow? What's the purpose of the bow? Kill. When somebody pulls a bow up and they're looking downrange, what are they trying to do downrange? Focus on the target. They're trying to hit the target. What is sin? Missing of the target. Why did Joseph not fall spiritually? Focus was on the target. You know when I fall spiritually? You know when you fall spiritually? It's not when we're focused on the target. I sin and you sin when we go, oh, I see him, there he is, but wait, look over here. And I am missing the mark. All these, verse 28, are the 12 tribes of Israel. This is what their father said to them as he blessed them, blessing each with the blessing suitable for him, suitable to him. Then he commanded them and said to them, I am to be gathered to my people. You notice how he talks about death? And it wasn't just him. Several folks talk about it in this way in the Old Testament. To be gathered to my people. Who was his people, though? I mean, his people were his children in front of him. But notice how he talks about the faithful of God. I'm to be gathered to my people. Several Old Testament folks talk about it like this. It's interesting to look back at how in the Old Testament they saw death, or they saw the coming judgment, or they saw heaven. Did they know about heaven? What did Job say? It's a song that we sing. I know that my Redeemer lives. How did he know? And what was he being redeemed from? What is a redeemer? What's it mean to redeem? Redeem is a financial term. What's it mean? To buy back. He says, I know that my Redeemer lives. How? Who told him? What was the promise in Genesis 3? Isn't it interesting that that's the tone? Is that there's someone coming to buy back our penalties. Jacob says, I'm going to be gathered with my people. How do we see death? Usually not good. We don't see it that way. Joseph says, I'm going to be gathered with my people. How did he know? What did they believe? Why was Joseph faithful throughout all that mess? You know Potiphar's wife had to be a humdinger. You know the blessings that came from Egypt's table had to be just highfalutin. Why did he not? His bow wasn't moved. He loved the Lord. Blessings or burdens never have to move us from the Lord. Blessings nor cursings never have to move us from the Lord. How does the Hebrews writer describe it? They were suffering for their faith, trying to stay faithful to the Christian walk and not go back into the life of a Hebrew Jew, to Judaism. And some of them have suffered. And the Hebrews writer says, you've yet to shed blood. Was Jesus faithful? Yes, he was. Did he shed blood? Yes, he sure did. He says, you've yet to shed blood in this way. So if he can be faithful as a human being, you can be faithful as a human being. You never have to leave. All these were the 12 tribes of Israel. He says, I'm going to be gathered with my people, 29. Bury me with my fathers in the cave that is in the field of Ephron the Hittite, in the cave that is in the field of Machpelah, at the east of Mamre in the land of Canaan, which Abraham bought with the field from Ephron the Hittite to possess as a burying place. There they buried Abraham and Sarah his wife. They buried Isaac and Rebekah his wife, and there I buried Leah. The field and the cave that is in it were bought from the Hittites. When Jacob finished commanding his sons, he drew up his feet into the bed and breathed his last and was gathered to his people. So this idea of being gathered to his people is not just some thought that Jacob had. The Holy Spirit says he was gathered with his people. Then Joseph fell on his father's face, and he wept over him and kissed him. Does Joseph know that Jacob's going to go on to be with his people? Does he not know that he's faithful to the Lord? The Holy Spirit himself, by Moses, says that he was gathered to his people. But what was Joseph still? Sad. Is it okay to be happy and sad at the same time? I sure hope so. Is it okay to be spiritually rejoicing yet physically and mentally and emotionally just sobbing? Yes. Does God know that? And some fool will come up and say, you ought not cry there with Jesus. You ever heard somebody say something like that? I just want to take the lid off this coffee and baptize them in it. You know what I mean? Wash away their sins. Joseph fell on his father's face. Is that good decorum? Men ought not cry. It is. You know, sometimes what we just need is a good old cry. There's a pressure valve in the back the Lord gave us. It's called cry. And when you go, it goes, psst, and all that pent-up stress you have, what happens to it? Gone. And then when you get done crying, what do you feel? Exhausted. You know how many folks sit in front of a counselor and when they get finished, they feel like they've been running a marathon? You know why? Because they've been working out all that mess that they've been holding in. When we internalize things and we don't vent them and get them out, we're a time bomb waiting to happen. We blow up on people. I'll be a poor daddy if I do that kind of stuff. I'll be a poor preacher. I'll be a poor Christian. What did Joseph miss? Think about this. Be Joseph for a minute. How much time did Joseph miss of this man? 22 years. Not just 22 years, but 22 years of a lot of lows. Who did he not have for 22 years? His daddy. He didn't have his family. And when he gets them back, the man dies. There's a little boy right here who's looking at his daddy. Sir? He had him 17. The first 17. Joseph commanded the servants, verse 2, physicians to embalm his father. There's an Egyptian practice. So the physicians embalmed Israel. 40 days were required for it. Can you imagine? You might know how they embalm. How did the Egyptians do it? You might know? Y'all ready? Are you really ready? They'd take a pair of pliers about yay long, and they'd run it up your nose, and they'd start pulling all your brains out. Cut you open and gut you like a fish. Stack you up full of salt and preservatives and everything else. They'd wrap you. Well, they had to. Wasn't nothing left. Physicians embalmed Israel. 40 days were required for it. For that is how many are required for embalming. And the Egyptians wept for him 70 days. Pause. Do we still have mummified people today? Sure. I mean, are there people who lived during this time that we still have their carcasses that are still somewhat intact? Yeah. Was there something about this that lasted? How long did it take to get to that process? 40 days. Isn't that interesting? What a process. How did they know to do that? How long can you keep ham if you live up in Appalachia? Anybody know? You said next to nothing? How long? It is. It is a long time. There's folks that can keep ham for 4 years. Wrap it up in salt, then bury it in the ground. And it'll keep. It'll keep. It's amazing that they knew how to do all this. Do you see how they were such worshipped? That they had all these things, and they had the modern science, and they had the modern leg up on things. And people came all around the world, and Egypt was so powerful. Was there wisdom with these people? Yeah. But was there foolishness with these people? Yeah. Over here drinking the blood of chicken egg yolks and all this stuff. Anyway, verse 4. And when the days of weeping for him were past, Joseph spoke to the household of Pharaoh, saying, If now I have found favor in your eyes, please speak in the ears of Pharaoh, saying, My father made me swear, saying, I am about to die in my tomb, that I hewed out for myself in the land of Canaan. There shall you bury me. Now therefore let me please go up and bury my father, then I will return. Pharaoh answered, Go up, bury your father as he made you swear. So Joseph went up to bury his father. Went up all the servants of Pharaoh, and the elders of his household, and all the elders of the land of Egypt, as well as the household of Joseph, his brothers, and his father's household. Talk about a funeral procession. And their children, their flocks, and their herds were left in the land of Goshen. And there went up with him both chariots and horsemen. It was a very great company. When they came to the threshing floor of Atad, which is beyond the Jordan, they lamented there with a very great and grievous lamentation. And he made a mourning for his father 7 days. When the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites, saw the mourning of the threshing floor at Atad, they said, This is a grievous mourning by the Egyptians. Therefore the place was named Abel Mizraim. You may know what that means? The mourning or crying of Egypt. It is beyond the Jordan. Thus his sons did for him as he had commanded them, for his sons carried him to the land of Canaan and buried him in the cave of the field of Machpelah, to the east of Mamre, which Abram brought with the field from Ephron the Hittite to possess a burying place. After he had buried his father, Joseph returned to Egypt with his brothers and all who had gone up with him to bury his father. When Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, It may be that Joseph will hate us and pay us back for all the evil that we did to him. What did these boys not trust? They didn't trust the goodness of God that had changed Joseph, that had kept Joseph all those years. Why? Why is it hard? Sometimes it's hard for us to trust people because they've lied to us. But what's another reason why it's hard for us to trust people? Because what? We are not trustworthy people. Psalmist says, My son, do not run with those who shed blood, for they'll turn and shed your blood. You can't trust untrustworthy people. Now, that may sound foolish, but not everybody's worthy of trust, are they? Not everybody can take and hold everything, can they? Okay, there's something called gossips. What are those kinds of foul creatures? Now, they're sweet, faithful servants of Jesus in the church, but they're gossips. What do they look like? Don't put no names out here. What do they do? Yeah, they do. Carry tales. What do? They look like us. Yeah. When I'm not a trustworthy person, or I'm in a season of lies, I become the most paranoid person in the room. Some people are paranoid because they're evil. That's some people. They're evil. You can't trust them. They can't even trust themselves. They've lived lives of lies over and over. That's some folks. That's these brothers. Some people, they were abused horribly, and they have a hard time trusting people, trust issues. But the fact remains, everybody can heal out of that. It says, so, well, Daddy's dead. He ain't going to have nothing to do with us. So they sent a message to Joseph saying, Your father gave this command before he died. Say to Joseph, Please forgive the transgressions of your brothers and their sin, because they did evil to you. And now please forgive the transgression of the servants of God of your father. Joseph wept when they spoke to him. His brothers also came and fell down before him and said, Behold, we are your servants. But Joseph said to them, Do not fear, for am I in the place of God? As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good. Why? He tells us why. Why did God give Joseph the dreams? Why did God bring about the famine that starved people? You know how many babies cried Mama's ears, her children cry because they didn't have nothing to eat? Mama couldn't produce milk because she ain't ate in a week. God did all of that to these people. He caused physical suffering. He said no to the blessings that He Himself brings about to this world. Pushed everybody into one hole. You meant to do this for evil. God meant this for good. God is not concerned with my physical safety like I am. God is not concerned with physical blessings like I am. God will do whatever He sees fit to bring about His glory and His goodness and His plan in my life. And we need to be in agreement with that. Sometimes my life does not look good so that God will look good. And for folks that walk around pompous, be careful. You're about to get struck down. God has killed idols before, and He'll do it again. I'm tired of being humbled, ain't y'all? I don't want no more humbling experiences. Do y'all? No. I better check myself. I better check everything at the door, hadn't I? He says, you meant this for evil. God meant it for good. Why? To bring about that many people should be kept alive as they are today. So do not fear. I will provide for you and your little ones. Thus He comforted them and spoke kindly to them. So Joseph remained in Egypt, he and his father's house. Joseph lived 110 years, and Joseph saw Ephraim's children of the third generation. The children also of Machir, the son of Manasseh, were counted as Joseph's own. And Joseph said to his brothers, I'm about to die, but God will visit you and bring you up out of this land to the land He swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. Then Joseph made the sons of Israel swear, saying, God will surely visit you, and you shall carry up my bones from here. He made them swear. Do you know God's coming? Yes. Do you swear God? You swear you know God's coming? Yes, we swear that we know God is coming. All right, I'm going to die now. He made them take that oath. So Joseph died. Being 110 years old, they embalmed him, and he was put in a coffin in Egypt. God willing, next week we'll pick up in Exodus. You are dismissed.